Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out another episode of Who is Sauron. Last time on Who is oh, that's not the name of the series. Yes, it is. Last time on Who is Sauron. Yeah, we're trying to recover from the devastation that was episode 7. Um, the Southlands no more. No more. It is now called Mordor. Adarno has the perfect climate to breed his orcs, and it's interesting to see how that'll actually come about. But yeah, the Queen Regent of Numenor is returning back to Numenor to gather a larger force. I'm assuming, come back and join the elves for the fight against the orcs. I have a suspicion that when she gets back to Numenor, that she's not going to be as welcomed or as popular as she thought initially. And she already knew that the crown was kind of teetering on the edge, and the people were swinging in either direction. We had one guy in a crowd in Numenor managing to sway the people against her, and calling her an elf lover, and now having however many Numenors killed in this battle, in aid of Galadriel. Her going back home, I don't think she's going to be in as good a position as she thinks she is. It's going to be a lot more difficult for her to come back, because I do think there is going to be a struggle for power there, especially with her cousin, who we know does in fact have some ambition and one, for the crown himself. So I do think it's going to be a bit of a challenge for her to come back. There's going to be some trouble in Numenor, and I'm interested to actually see how that unfolds. Um, yeah, well, fortunately for us, many of our favorite characters have survived. You know, for me, I guess it's probably Arondir and Bronwyn, and Theo is alive as well. And I think the lingering shot there at the end of the last episode, at the end of the last episode, is Theo holding up the sword, and saying, something to the Southlands or whatever. But I do believe he's being set up to be, the chosen king, or the king that the people choose, and not the one that they're just being given. Because I don't believe that's what Halbrand is. I don't know if he's Sauron or not, but if he is Sauron, he and Galadriel are now headed to the elf's home, and I think she may be, if people's suspicion is true, she may be bringing Sauron right to the elf's home, and bringing him back to life, because he is injured. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we'll get that revelation in this episode, whether he is Sauron or not. Of course, the stranger definitely not Sauron. Even though initially I didn't particularly want him to be Gandalf, but it's looking more and more like he is Gandalf, with the relationship with the Harfoots having started here, and that would explain why later on he has such a strong connection with them. But Nori and Poppy and her and Nori's mom are on their way, and the village. I don't think he's a chief. I don't think the Harfoots have chiefs, but whatever he is, the guide who maps everything, he's accompanying them as well, and they're going to find the stranger to, help him before these weird witches find him. So yeah. There's a lot to tie up this episode. Um, I do wish that we had 10 episodes for the season, because I think I would have wanted a bit more for season one. But that depends on how they end, this episode. So let's get into it.
You're not a Perry.
Okay, he's managing. I do believe what I said before. I think the reason why they're looking for him is because the wizards can go either to the light or the dark side. I was recently rewatching Lord of the Rings, and the initially when Gandalf came across the ring, he was afraid to touch it because he could be corrupted by it himself. So I do think, he's a wizard. He just hasn't decided which way to go as yet. And I think Nori is the key to ensuring that he stays on the good path here. Who is this?
Nori.
You're not Nori. Nori is traveling with several people. Yes, the witches. But whatever they are. They found him. I think they're trying to make him into Saruman. Well, not really Saruman, but an ally to the dark side. Oh, well, they're calling him Sauron. I don't think he is, though. I still don't think he is. But let's see.
And we have none.
I think Gil-galad knew you would fail.
Some way.
I think this guy could be more, likely to be Sauron.
With less. We're out of time, Celebrimbor.
Invade the doors?
We must inform the High King of our failure.
Or take it by force. Oh, she's arrived. Okay. Yeah.
Galadriel?
I brought a human with me.
King of the Southlands. How is it your path crossed with his?
Yeah. Sure, aren't you heading home?
We have much to discuss.
Yes, we do. Initially I thought that there was something romantic happening between these two, but then she said she has a husband. Well, had a husband, so perhaps not. Did you bring Sauron here?
Shouldn't you be resting?
I mean, is he the one that gives him the idea to fashion the rings? I mean, he's looking pretty Sauron suspicious right now.
Never dreamed I'd ever get the chance to see them in person.
You a smith?
Well, nothing like your artistry. Peculiar at all.
He immediately went for the mithril.
What is it?
Not enough.
Enough for what?
Asking an awful lot of questions. Yeah, he's looking suspicious right now.
Might there not be some alloy to amplify the qualities of your ore?
Suspicion increased.
Well, that is
What other ore is he going to
an intriguing suggestion.
amplify it with then? Yeah, he just made himself look very, very suspicious as Sauron. I don't even know how to.
For all Middle Earth.
I know it sounds strange, High King, but surely we should exhaust every possible solution.
Smaller than previously imagined. Something that could be carried.
A scepter, perhaps?
That would
Or
just
perhaps
how.
a crown.
How would that help everyone except the one wearing the crown?
Who wanted a solution more than I.
Their time is up.
But if this was to be our salvation, I'm afraid we needed it.
It was only in speaking with the Southlander that I realized.
The low man, this idea was his.
His suggestions were but the key that unlocked the dam. We are on the cusp of crafting a new
The key that's unlocked the dam. Interesting choice of
not
words.
of the flesh, but over flesh. This is
I don't know if Galadriel is picking up on the suspicion or not. And he's acting like Sauron.
Those words.
Halbrand is acting like Sauron.
Power over flesh.
Yeah, I've heard that
Where did
before,
you-
didn't I?
I believe
Who
there's a
said it?
Was Halbrand with you?
What does it matter?
All right. Halbrand is, it seems, could be Sauron.
Merely that, nothing more.
Hope is never mere. Not even when it is
His
mere.
words.
Or have you forgotten your own counsel?
I just don't see how one crown would actually help in this situation. But why would Halbrand want them to restore the light of the tree? Unless the other ore that they're going to be using with the Mithril will be, you know, what helps Sauron to control the other rings. Yeah, she's picking up on something.
I need royal lineages, bloodlines, anything you can hold.
Yeah, perhaps you should have been keeping better records, okay? You've got to know your
Two of you seem quite
enemies.
familiar.
I'm just offering whatever humble aid I can.
Are you now?
Tell you the truth, I can still hardly believe it.
You helped him more than you know. Giving him a second chance of conquering
You
Middle-earth.
believed in me. You saw strength in me. You pushed me to heights that no one else could have. I will never forget that. I'll see to it that no one else does either.
What does that mean? Come on, Galadriel, you know something's up. Yeah, I think they just believe he's Sauron because Sauron is in hiding or masking himself. But he's definitely not Sauron.
To the east, where the stars are strange, the lands of
Rune. Come on, you're good. Remember
the winds and waters.
Remember Nori's words.
Heat and cold. In Rune you shall learn to command them all, and every being that walks or crawls shall be your slave.
Come on, you're good. No, I don't believe it.
In time he will learn to control you.
Yeah. Come on, where's... I think Nori, Poppy, and the others are gonna have to come to rescue him. But he's not Sauron. Alright?
A long tradition of bad ideas. That's my
How did they save him from these people? They have no powers or anything of the sort. Oh, she sensed them. That's why she stopped. Yeah, she's gonna catch them. She's gonna catch them. You know she does the disappearing thing. Gotta look out for that. Uh-oh. Don't tell me mom's going to die. Oh, that's her. That's not him. They tricked you.
Hey! Brandyfoot! Run!
Oh, damn it. I thought her mom was the one that was going to die. They killed Sadak. This one is troublesome. The others don't appear to know magic. This one is the dangerous one. Don't touch Nori. Come on, stranger. How dare you touch my friend? Be gone. This one's pretty strong. He needs a staff, man. He needs a staff. Oh, damn it. They're still awake. Who's gonna help them now? Oh, Sadok. I hope he's not dead. Well, I hope he doesn't die. How'd they escape just now? Uh-oh. Seeing what she does with fire. Not great. Watch out, Mom. What? These are some brave Harfoots. They need your help.
Take it. We need you. Please just take it.
Oh, her staff. Yes.
Right.
He needed a staff. We've been saying this for a while now. He needs something to channel the power, and that's why he keeps getting hurt whenever he tries to use his magic.
What I am.
Only you can show what you are.
Come on. They need your help. Come on, take the staff.
It'll only hurt but a moment.
Yeah. I still don't like that stuff. That one looks a little too evil. But it'll do for now. I think he needed something to channel his power and control
To Shadow,
it.
I bid you return.
He is not Sauron. He is the other.
Yeah, I knew it.
I'm good.
Yes, I knew it. That design looks pretty cool. I knew it. Yeah, he needs to get himself a better staff anyway. Well done. I want to say he's Gandalf at this point. I would prefer that he's a different wizard, but it's all pointing to him being Gandalf.
Sadok?
Yeah, he was tabbed.
Afraid I'm about to go a wandering off trail.
Mr. Barrow.
Would have thought that this would be the guy to get me to tear up.
The missus will be waiting.
You did a lot, Sadok. Not leaving you alone. You know, the one guy who didn't want to go off trail and forbade them from, stepping outside of the norm and so on, and he's the one that, helped them find the stranger and helped to save him. R.I.P. Sadok. I should counting.
7, 8.
Oh, okay. Learning the layout of the room.
You're doing well.
Patronize me like that again, Captain. I'll have your ship.
Oh, so she still doesn't want others to know that she's blind.
I have you.
And who has you? Given your loss, I would understand it if upon our return you wish to take a leave of duty.
That's fair.
Why I pulled Galadriel from the sea. I claim to have had little choice. But the truth is, I could have left her there.
He chose not to.
I just never imagined it when they did.
These were his choices.
Mother once told me
Price
that
has
the way
been
of
paid.
the faithful is committing to pay the price.
Yes, the question
Trust
is
him
it
until
all
the end,
worth
it
it?
will be worth
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, the war with the Ark will eventually reach their shores, so I would think it is. Better they know now than when, it's too late.
And I, for one, will see to it that we make the end worth the price.
Good.
Come what may.
It's good to see that they're not, letting themselves. Yeah. She's gonna need someone loyal by her side because I don't think things are gonna go great in Numenor. But I still don't understand why she's. Oh, okay. Alright, so they will know that she's not able to see.
The Mithril is
Doesn't stop her from being a goddamn good leader.
refuses every effort to bond it with lesser ores.
We don't have time.
Enough for today. Perhaps we've been pushing ourselves too hard.
Pushing ourselves too hard.
Yeah, he's gonna push it.
Supposing that's the trouble.
The metals shouldn't be forced to join, but more drawn or coaxed together. Now, if that's true, we've been doing it all inside out. Quickly, dismantle this. We start again.
Yeah, he's giving them all the right ideas. Don't bring it here. I said tell no one. Yeah, I don't think there was anyone named Halbrand in the Southland, heir to the throne.
Galadriel.
We're making two.
2 crowns.
Not exactly. It'll need to be something
round,
smaller.
Small, ring.
Come, see for yourself.
Not until you tell me who you are.
Galadriel, I'm afraid I don't.
Woman of truth.
There's no king of the Southlands. The line was broken.
I guess when so much time passed with the elves, they miss so much.
No, on the raft you saved me.
On the raft, you saved me.
You convinced Miriel to save the men of Middle-earth.
You convinced her. I wanted to remain.
But why is he can't be human then? I mean,
I have been awake since before the breaking of the first silence.
Yeah, definitely Sauron.
In that time, I have had many names.
Yeah. He's just masking his identity. Sauron can't take many forms, so yeah, I guess this is just the one that he chose. And she unfortunately gave him everything that he needed. I'm glad we got the reveal. I mean, I suspected we would by the end of the season.
Look at me.
Don't fall for it.
My
Damn you, Sauron, you trickster.
was to ensure peace. But I learned that was Sauron's task as well.
No.
Is it now? Yeah.
Remember what I whispered to you under this very tree.
He has access to her very memories.
Touch the darkness once more.
Now it's just creepy the second time around.
My brother is dead. Because of you.
Galadriel. Why would you say that? Why would you say such a thing?
Come on, break free.
Galadriel.
Nope. What will happen next, though?
Galadriel. Look at me!
Back on the ship.
Galadriel, look up.
I guess the question is, when she comes to, how much time would have passed?
After our victory, you said, whatever I'd done before.
Yeah, that was before she knew who you were.
I told you that I had done evil, and you did not care.
Yeah, because it's what she needed to hear at the time.
Wait against our future.
He's too powerful. Yep, confirmed. If it wasn't already obvious.
You can see your light.
You would make me a tyrant.
I would make you a queen.
Interesting. Tying back to the movie.
You can't save this little earth.
Don't fall for it.
Say.
I mean, he still killed your brother. And your husband, supposedly.
No difference.
Yeah.
Without me, your people will fade. And the shadow will spread and darken to cover all the world. You need me.
I should have left you on the sea.
A sea that you were on because the elves cast you out.
He's just feeding on all her
My
worst
ally.
mistakes and fears.
Sauron lives because of you!
He did save her, but obviously for his own goals. I like the way they've done this. It could have easily just made it a physical battle between the two. But instead they went for somewhat, not so much a mental battle, but a battle of different ideologies.
Galadriel, stop. Elrond. It's Elrond.
Alright, I think it's Elrond. I don't know, he does seem to have access to her memories, so could not be. But hopefully it is. But I get the impression Halbrand is already gone.
Where is he?
Workshop. They'll almost be finished by now.
Explain, at least explain what happened, so you don't go in there looking like a crazy person.
Is it done?
Galadriel, as wet as a river rock. Why?
Because I pulled her from the waters of the Glanduin.
The Glanduin? What happened?
I mean, you gotta explain something to them.
It's Halbrand.
He is gone,
Yeah.
and I doubt he will return.
You're not gonna tell them more?
Should he ever, none of us are to treat with him again.
Come on, don't do that.
So, do we proceed?
No. We must make 3.
Said not to trust him, but she's also doing what he wanted.
I need gold and silver of the most exquisite quality. I need gold and silver from Valinor.
Ooh.
True creation requires
Oh, her brother's dagger.
sacrifice.
Interesting. Yes, it saves her people, but she knew the risk and she still went with it. I mean, why on earth would Sauron want to help you? We must have known that there would be a cost. And there should be more than 3 rings, shouldn't there? Well, the others would be for the dwarves and men, I suppose.
Coming with us, are you?
And again, those haven't been built as yet.
Betimes our paths are laid before us by powers greater than our own.
I'm sure you'll see him again.
Sounds a bit like an adventure.
Alone, it's just a journey. No adventures.
I would want her to go with him, but it's going to be too dangerous judging by what we just seen. And this has been a great adventure for her. Yeah, unfortunately. They lost Sada.
Holding it upside down. Eh? Sorry, Nalda. Nothing but steep slopes and brickled brambles for me. Quick and wide. Why do you do the trail?
Maybe she should. Maybe she should. It would have been nice to see them have a send-off for Sadak, though. No, okay. At least they acknowledged it. Oh? She's going with him?
You're part of something bigger now.
Didn't think she would. Alright, my teenage daughter, I'm sending you out into the world with no protection with some random stranger. Alright. She'll be good for him. And again, as I said, I didn't want it to be Gandalf, but I think it's pretty much pointing to that. I wish Poppy was going with them, though. I kind of like the duo. But Poppy has work to do here.
Of course. Good. Well. Goodbye.
Some father. Here you're heading in the big beyond, and I haven't taught you a blooming thing.
Sure you have. Always quench your fire, water and earth. Don't squat by a river. Never know when you'll need a drink down the street. And a hard foot without manners is as light to get far in life.
These are some good, truly great moments, I've got to say.
Find where the river runs, where the sparrows learn their songs.
And I
Yes, she will. Strangers at the top of the hill, like, guys, I've got to get going. It's always tough to say goodbye to your home or what you've known your entire life, you know? Okay. This one seemed to be the odd when she just walked off. Dear Poppy.
Why does everyone I love the most always have to go away?
She'll be back.
Because I think if we didn't, then we'd never learn anything new. In this whole wide, wild world, I'd do anything for you. The world's not that wide, Poppy. It's the worst when it's small.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's true as well. Make sure she comes back, stranger. He has a lot more dialogue now, and I'm loving it.
There it is.
Are you sure?
Not entirely. In doubt. Eleanor Brandyford. Always follow your nose.
If he's Gandalf, he'd make a great Gandalf. I must say. Okay, the Harfoots are still traveling. I actually thought this was gonna be the Shire, but I suppose it's too close to the south, since they were affected by the volcano. Galadriel, why? I mean, she thinks this is a power that will help her defeat Sauron, but he must know that there was a reason he helped to forge this. The good thing is, and I think she realizes, that she has to let go of her brother, because it can be used against her, as she saw just now. It's interesting. It looks like the Eye of Sauron. And my guess would be the other rings, and I suppose this is what will happen over the course of the next few seasons. Sauron will change his appearance again and appear before the dwarves and appear before men and somehow whisper in their ear to ensure that the rings get made. They will need more mithril, but I gather with the dwarves that won't be too difficult. The rings for the men is, that's the one I'm a bit more interested in, because I guess there's Numenor, but Numenor is a good deal away. Interesting designs. I actually thought all the rings looked the same, but I guess not. What have you done, Galadriel? Alright, he's returned to Mordor, but he and Adar don't seem to be in good standing. Alright, episode 8, the final episode of the season of the Rings of Power. That was a fantastic episode. It's very closely tied to episode 6 for me. Not a lot of action, of course, but so many revelations and motivations from different characters. And the dialogue was just really, really fantastic. So even though episode 6, I like that had a combination of the two, I really enjoyed this a whole lot. So it's close to episode 6 for there. The only thing that prevents it from being, above episode 6 is there's no Arondir and Bronwyn and Theo. I quite like that story thread. But yes, we finally have some answers. Sauron's identity, who people have speculated initially. I wasn't quite on board yet. I did know that it was someone we have met. I just wasn't convinced that it was Halbrand initially, but slowly but surely you saw the clues. But the fact that initially when he wanted to stay in Numenor and he didn't want to go with Galadriel to Middle Earth, you were maybe he's not Sauron. I mean, if he was Sauron, he would want to go with her, and he didn't. But I think what sealed it for everyone was episode 6, where that encounter between Halbrand and Adar, and Adar is saying he's who are you, and also saying that he slayed Sauron, and Halbrand clearly knowing who he was, and I think that kind of cemented things and made it a bit more evident that he could potentially be Sauron then. But it's now confirmed he is Sauron, and yeah, I do not know why Galadriel would do this. I mean, one would assume she believes that with this power she will have, her people will be able to stay here. I'm still not quite clear on how the ring would stop the decay of the light. I don't see how 3 rings would prevent that. But apparently it does. It's a show with magic, so apparently it does. But yes, it would save your people and they wouldn't have to stay in Middle Earth, but at the same time, you know he's giving you this power, and you know you have to ask yourself, why would he be giving you this power? And there must be a reason for it. So yeah, I mean, she full well knew she kept it from Elrond. So for Galadriel's growth has been an interesting one throughout this season. Most people, I mean, not most people, a few people in the fandom didn't take to her initially. I've loved her from the start. Yeah, she wasn't the most likable, but that's why characters grew. You know, she doesn't start off as the most likable character, but over time you see why she is the way she is, and she has been slowly learning from, you know, her experiences throughout the season. And I like where she's at now. She's not completely redeemed herself. In fact, she's taken a step back in this episode. But she has never felt more like the Galadriel from the films than she has in this episode. You see the conflict in what, you know, needs to happen. You know, you see it happening within her, and she chooses this path. And I feel this is the closest she's ever been to that Galadriel that we know from the films. Yeah, she knows this power. She feels that, okay, this is something she can use. They try to send her home and take away her agency, and this is a way that she gets to keep, you know, what she feels she deserves. And yeah, it's not gonna work out great, but it's not supposed to, you know. It is a character who is very, very nuanced. When you listen to her conversation with Theo in the last episode, that was one of my favorite lines of dialogue in the last episode. And her cautioning him about, you know, acknowledging that something bad is actually a good thing, and how it can darken the heart, you know. And I think she truly does believe that, and I mean, I think she truly does believe it, but at the same time, she's just really caught up in, you know, in getting vengeance, and it's just a pity that it's gonna pull other people in, and you know, people are going to die for it. Yeah, unfortunate. The other revelation that we got this episode was, you know, the wizard. Well, it's not so much a revelation, of course. They didn't confirm that he's Gandalf, I don't believe. I don't think so. But we now know he's definitely not Sauron. So, I mean, given everything else that was said about him in this episode, I think it's a sure thing that he is Gandalf. I would prefer that he is another wizard, if only because we know how the fandom can be, and there's always going to be comparisons that are being drawn, and you know, I'd prefer that we take the time to just focus on character, you know, avoid that altogether, so that people aren't saying, oh, Gandalf wouldn't do this, Gandalf wouldn't do that. So I prefer that they use a different wizard, and I'm told by others that there should be other wizards around this time, so that would be my preference. Yeah. So I mean, if it is Gandalf, I won't mind it. It would explain his relationships with the hobbits and coming back from the Harfoots, and you know, why he likes them as much as he does, because you know, when he first got here, he spent so much time with them, and you know, they helped shape him in the direction of good. And that scene with him and the you know, the other servants of Sauron, it was quite interesting. I really liked how that was done. And unfortunately, we lost Sadok, and yeah, it was interesting character, because initially, you know, he wasn't necessarily a standout among the Harfoots, but you really felt that moment when he sacrificed him. You know, we were still moving. At one point, I was asking myself, wasn't he stabbed? But he was still pushing himself, because he really cared about these people and he wanted to help. And it's just really poignant that, you know, this character who's always warned everyone not to stray off trail, and you know, he's the one that helps them to find to catch up to the stranger. and to help save him. It was just a really heartfelt moment there to see Sada going off. Yeah, the Harfoots have been one of my favorite things in the series, I have to say. For some reason, some people don't like them. I don't know why. I guess they represent more of a, I wouldn't necessarily say slow paced, but kind of a recovery period where everything is kind of toned down and light. But there's nothing wrong with that, so we come out of an intense episode and then we go to the Harfoots to kind of have a shift in tone for a bit, and that's something that you kind of need. I mean, it's Lord of the Rings, there's always levity mixed into it. This is not something new to the franchise, so and that's what the Harfoots have typically represented in the franchise. So I've quite liked them a bit. I would dare say I enjoyed the Harfoots here more than I do Pippin and the others in the movie. And not that I dislike them. I didn't particularly, I didn't connect with the hobbits in the movie all that well, except for maybe Frodo and Sam. But here I actually enjoy getting to know them and seeing their relationships and so on, and I really like their dynamic with the stranger. It's one of my favorite things, one of my favorite story threads in the entire series. We didn't get any Arondir and Bronwyn, unfortunately, because this is the last episode. I would have hoped to at least see, and we know where they were heading, and I think I mentioned at the very beginning of this episode that I do believe, now that it's been revealed that, Halbrand is not the king of the Southlands, I think that's going to be Theo. Since the line was broken, I think Theo is going to be the king that the Southlands choose, and we see hints being sprinkled throughout. What the giveaway for me was in the last episode when they were riding off and he held up the sword and said, I think power to the Southlands or something like that. And there was a shot on his hand holding Galadriel's sword. So I think that was a hint that, okay, this is going to be the true king of the Southlands. So I think there's more to that story, and we'll definitely be following up with those characters in the new season. Yeah, we didn't get any of the dwarves this episode either. But given everything else that has happened, I was listening to the song at the end of this episode, and I think 9 rings to the dwarves and 7 rings to the men. So I would think the next episode would probably focus more on the dwarven rings being made. Next season, I should say, the dwarven rings being made, and then men after. I'm most curious about the men, the ring for the men being made, but we'll see how that goes. Based on where we left things in the last episode, not great. Disa and Durin kind of plotting to overthrow the king. I wouldn't think Durin would kill his father. I don't think so. But he would definitely try to overthrow him and a coup of some sorts. But the way in which both Durin and Disa were speaking, it felt as though the Mithril does seem to have some properties that entrances people, and I think that is what is happening, especially because the dwarves are surrounded by so much of it. And of course, I think they are going to mine more Mithril, and the Balrog is unfortunately going to be released. And yeah, it's not going to be great. Now, as it concerns the men, and more specifically the Numenors, and speaking of which, I am curious to know, because we've been focusing more on the Numenors for the duration of this season, but they're not really, they don't associate themselves with men. In fact, they call them low men, because they're something else, right? And they have a longer lifespan than traditional men do. So when they say 7 rings for the men, are they speaking about the Numenors, or are they talking about low men, or just men? That I'm curious to know about, whether it's the Numenors that get the other 7 rings or just the other men, which would be, I guess, the Southlanders or others. I'm sure there are other men elsewhere, but for the purpose of this, the Southlands. So who gets the 7 rings? But in Numenor, the Queen Regent has returned. I mentioned earlier in this episode, I do not think things are going to go well in the Southlands. The last shot there with the king, I'm not sure if he was implying that he died, because I thought he died a few times throughout the episode, to be honest. So I'm not sure if the last shot with the Queen's advisor looking over him is suggesting that he died, or maybe the guy killed him himself. I do think there's going to be a power struggle in Numenor between the Queen and her cousin. With her losing her sight, I believe she may lose her power, or at least there may be a fight, and maybe she comes out on top. I'd hate to lose her because she's been a standout character for me personally in this episode. I think she's really good. The actress has been doing a fantastic job, and of course Elendil, I think, is that his name? I hope that's his name. Isildur's father, he's come around now, having lost his son, which is tragic, of course, but, he wants to ensure that loss wasn't in vain, and it's good to see that he's standing by the Queen's side, because I think she's going to need support for what's to come. So I do think there's going to be some turmoil in Numenor. Overall, for the series, I know there's been a lot of criticisms from, I don't know what to call them, but basement dwellers just complaining about, and gatekeepers is complaining about and nitpicking every single thing about the series. This was a fantastic first season for me personally. Yes, the first few episodes took its time to, world build, because that is necessary for a world that is this expansive. And you do need to care about the characters. I would not have cared about Sadok dying this episode if we didn't spend time with the Harfoots. It all needs to matter. Otherwise, what's the point of telling the story? I think we become too inundated with just action. We've forgotten about the storytelling aspect of it, and I think this did that in a masterful way for me. So I mean, yes, a lot of dialogue, but again, it is Tolkien. If you come in expecting some Tolkien adaptation to be action every minute and deception and rape and murder, then you're in the wrong place. And I think there's room for both. I've had discussions with persons who have been watching House of Dragons, and they're like, oh yeah, House of Dragon has too much of abusing women and murder and stuff. And I'm like, why don't you just watch Rings of Power? And the typical response is that it's not dark enough. So you're just not going to please every single person, because some people just don't know what they want, to be honest. So have both. If someone wants something a bit more dank and dark and brutal, watch House of Dragons. If you want you want something that focuses a bit more on a compelling story and drama, watch Rings of Power. And that's the camp in which I fall. I'm not the biggest fan of House of Dragons. It just feels like much of the same to me. So Rings of Power for me offers something different that we have not seen on TV before. Well, not technical TV, but you get my point. The production quality is ridiculous, obviously. Massive budget going into each episode. But I'm enjoying the story so far and where exactly it's going. And as someone who is not familiar with the Lord of the Rings lore outside of the films, I can highly recommend this to someone. You don't necessarily need to even watch the movies, even though I would recommend people, watch the movies before you watch this. But you don't have to, since this leads into that. You can probably just watch the series, and then once it concludes, you can go into watching, the Lord of the Rings films. But those are so amazing on their own, which I'd still recommend people watch that before. But yeah, overall, I mean, the score, I think Bear McCreary does the score for the series, and I'm a huge Bear McCreary fan, of course, from Black Sails. Black Sails, which is not by far one of the best series we've ever made in the last few decades, and I recommend anyone who's not watched Black Sails. If you love the pacing of this show, well, not so much the pacing. Black Sails is a bit more darker because it's about pirates, but it's still a fantastic show because it's so Shakespearean in the writing. If you love this, I highly recommend watching Black Sails. Bear McCreary also does the score for Black Sails as well, and the story is fantastic. But yeah, he did a fantastic job here with the score for this as well. So everything, the acting, I cannot speak enough on the acting. I think I spoke about this a few episodes back about the difference between celebrity actors and theater actors in Hollywood. And what we got here, I believe, were a lot of theater actors. And I've compared it often to some of the performances that you get in something like the Witcher series, and why Henry Cavill isn't necessarily my favorite because he's not the best actor in that series. I fully believe that that's Anya who plays Yennefer, and I believe she is a theater actor because I despise Yennefer in the video games and the books in Witcher, and I loved Anya because of her performance in The Witcher, and I see something similar here. And you can tell that these are actors who play these roles every single night on stage, and it's a craft that they've been honing for many years. No, there wasn't a single performance in this series that I can say someone phoned it in. There just wasn't. Everyone gave a fantastic performance, and I think that is credit to many of them probably being theater actors who have been doing this their entire lives. It was just fantastic. It was fantastic. If I had to choose a favorite character, it's tough. I think it would probably be a tie between Durin and Arondir, interestingly enough. I didn't think I would like Arondir as much because, as I've mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of romantic elements taking over a series. But I think one of the reasons why it worked for me in this series is because they weren't beating you over the head with the fact that both he and Bronwyn were romantically involved or wanted to be. It wasn't constantly stop during this critical moment to kiss or remind yourselves that you love each other or anything like that. We didn't get that, but we knew. You can just tell, and it's interesting because other series will go hard, and they need to have the sex scene in there to establish that these characters care about each other. It wasn't necessary here. You could tell just the way they speak to each other, just at a glance, that these people care about each other. And then we don't touch that again for several episodes because there's a war and they're focused on that. And then we come back to it and then we move on. It's not something that they lingered on to the point where you feel like they're beating you over the head with the fact that, okay, these two, they really like each other. No, it was very nuanced and balanced, I think is the word I'm looking for. It was just really balanced. And to the point where I came to care about his and Theo's relationship, which I didn't think I wanted. But seeing the last episode when Theo saw him come back into the tent and he hugged him, I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's it. So yeah, it's a tie for me between Arondir and Durin. Durin, of course, and the reason, because Durin comes as a package deal. It's between Durin and Elrond, so it's not even Durin by himself. It's just the moments between him and Elrond that were just hilarious throughout the series, and their dynamic is just something I'm going to go back and watch. Just their scenes alone together, it was just great. So favorite characters, it's a tie between Durin and Arondir for me. Yeah. So I think that's it, and not much else to talk about. We didn't get a lot of Adar this episode. I guess my one criticism of this series, and it was, if I had to give one, was just episode 6 with Adar, because I felt he should have put up a better fight as an elf turning orc sort of thing. I thought he was taken down too easily. That's my one criticism, because as an elf, he's supposed to be hella graceful, and to see Halbrand just trip his horse like that and he fell over and stabbed him, and that was it. I was a bit disappointed by that, but then considering what happens next, it worked out. it worked out. But that would be my only criticism of the show if I had one. Pacing wise, I did not have an issue with the series. I thought it was brilliantly paced. If you are here for the story, then you would not notice the time flying by. I certainly did not. So I guess it depends on what the viewer's expectation is, but this is definitely one of the better series that I've watched in a very long time, I must say. It was amazing all around. Alright guys, that is it for me. Season 1 of the Rings of Power at a conclusion. Fantastic season. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Be sure to post down below in the comments. Let me know what who your favorite character is, or your favorite storyline that you've enjoyed throughout this season. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to support the channel, and I'll see you for the next one.